Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Ostrowski. I'm with Eagle's Environmental Support Division, and I welcome you to our public information meeting tonight on the Wayne Disposal Hazardous Waste Landfill, the Waste Management Facility Operating License Major Modification. We've got about 22 people logged in right now to view, and I'm sure we'll get several more jump on as we get started this evening. But I'm glad you're all here with us. Like I said, my name is Jim Ostrowski. I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping guidelines for our Zoom webinar public meeting tonight, and then I'll turn it over to Kimberly. First of all, you've noticed all lines are muted, and we'll keep them muted throughout the meeting until we get to the Q&A, and I'll explain how to do that in a minute. If you have a question for our panel tonight, you can type it into the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar. So you should see a Q&A box, type it in there, and we'll be going through those after our presentation. You can also, if you'd rather voice your question, you can click the raise hand icon and we will call on you and we will unmute your mic at that time. So then you can unmute it on your end and you can ask us your question. We'll call on you if that happens. I want to let you know we're also recording this meeting and we'll post it up on our YouTube channel probably in the next few days. I'd assume by Friday we have it up there and you'll all be able to see it on the YouTube channel. So with that, I'm going to step back and turn it over to Kimberly Tyson with the Materials Management Division. Kimberly, go ahead and come on, and I'll let Christine Matlock take over a presentation and switch it over.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to learn about the major modification request for Wayne Disposal in Belleville, Michigan. My name is Kimberly Tyson. I work out of our Lansing headquarters office and supervise Eagle staff who permit this facility. This evening, we want to explain the modification request that Eagle has received and give you the opportunity to ask questions about the request. Joining me tonight are staff reviewing the request. We have Christine Matlock. Okay. You want to introduce yourself, Christine? Oh, you're muted.
Apologize. My name is Christine Matlock. I'm the permit engineer for Wayne Disposal, Inc.
All right. And we also have Mr. Joe Rogers.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Rogers. I'm the geologist for the Wayne Disposal Facility. I've been working on the project for approximately 15 years. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. We have Mr. Sean Shields.
Hello, I'm Sean Shields. I'm the environmental quality analyst for this facility.
Okay. And we have Mr. Michael Bussey.
Yeah, my name is Mike Bussey. I work out of the Southeast Michigan District Office. I'm a hazardous waste inspector, and I've dealt with Wayne Disposal for quite a few years.
Thanks, Mike. All right, in terms of agenda tonight, we'll spend about 30 minutes discussing the proposed changes to the landfill liner design and Eagle's review process. And then we'll have about an hour for questions and answers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Christine to start the presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're here to talk about Wayne Disposal, Inc. It's also, I'll be calling it Wayne or WDI tonight, just to shorten it up a little bit. It's located in Belleville, Michigan. It is the hazardous waste landfill. For those of you who are not familiar with the facility or can't see this picture, it is bounded by Willow Run Airport to the north, I-94 to the south. There's a few industrial facilities to the west and then a public park to the east. It is owned and operated by U.S. Ecology, and it is regulated through the state of Michigan, through Eagle with an operating license, and then also through EPA with a Toxic Substance Control Act permit. So we're here tonight to talk about the modification. It is a modification to their landfill liner design. It won't affect any other part of their license, and it was submitted in January of 2021, so this January. Just to give you an idea of where we're going to be talking about, like the location of what it affects, we'll be talking about this red rectangle in the top in the northwest corner. So just to give you a closer look. Sorry. So landfills, Wayne especially, are broke up into segments, or we call them subcells. In this case, it is master cell 6G, and then 1 through 7, and then master cell 6F 1 through 4. We're going to be talking about the modification in terms of G subcells 4 through 7 tonight, and then F through 4, F1 through 4. It is important to note that in 2018, the same modification was approved for subcells 6, master cell 6, G, 2, and 3. So if you're looking between the two blue boxes, there are 2 cells to the left. So just to give you a perspective and context for what the modification is requesting, I want to give a brief overview of what is currently approved in their operating license. So the design and criteria of hazardous waste landfills are regulated by Part 111, and they have strict criteria for what it requires. So this is currently approved in their license, and I will be going from top to bottom. Well, just to give you a context, liner system is actually at the bottom of a landfill, and it's actually what protects the surrounding environment from any contamination. So the groundwater or the surrounding area doesn't come into contact with waste or leachate. So top to bottom is the leachate collection layer. This sand layer is 1 foot, and it's actually what is in contact with the waste. It allows the leachate to be moved to a specific area where it's then pumped and sent off for treatment. And then the layer right below it is the primary liner design, the primary liner system. This is comprised of a geomembrane, so think a plastic sheeting, and then a compacted clay of 5 feet. This is important because the clay has to meet very specific criteria for the material itself and then also the construction. Below that is the leak detection system. If the primary liner system is compromised or fails in any way, it's going to be known in the leak detection system. It picks up any of the leachate that has made it through the liner system. It allows Wayne time to find and make repairs, but there's also a contingency plan. There's a secondary liner system below that, which also includes the geomembrane, so plastic sheeting, and then 3 more feet of the compacted clay. So the clay in the secondary liner system has to meet the same requirements as the clay in the primary liner system. And then like any other construction, you need a solid foundation so it's stable and you can build up. In this case, we call it 2 feet of structural fill. It's basically compacted clay again. So what are the proposed design changes? The leachate collection system, the leak detection system, and the subbase will not change in any way. There are no requests to be modified for those. The primary liner system and the secondary liner system will have the design changes. Wayne has requested that they move from a compacted clay liner to a geosynthetic clay liner. Compacted clay is similar, it's what's already approved, but the geosynthetic clay liner is essentially a layer of bentonite, and it's sandwiched between 2 layers of fabric. And so just to put it in perspective, 1 layer of geosynthetic clay liner, or GCL, is equivalent to 3 feet of compacted clay. It does have superior properties. So the primary liner system will include the geomembrane, so plastic sheeting once again, 2 layers of the geosynthetic clay liner, and then another 5 feet of compacted clay as an added contingency for the primary liner. The secondary liner system will include a geomembrane, so plastic sheeting, and then 2 additional layers of geosynthetic. The secondary liner system will not include any compacted clay in it. So how do we evaluate these changes? Per Part 111, which are our hazardous waste rules here in Michigan, allow for an equivalency demonstration. So if a facility would like to make an alternative design to what's allowed in the rules, they are allowed to do so, but they have to demonstrate that it is as protective or more so than what is approved in their operating license currently or the rules. So we look at multiple areas: the technical, the operational, and then compatibility. Technical, the hydraulic properties. How does the material react with water or vapors moving through it? What are the physical properties? Is the GCL, does it have any erosion, settlement, or how is it on slopes? Right? Operational, it has to be able to be constructed well. What are the quality controls in places? And then everyday use. There are trucks that drive over the landfill, so you need to be able to factor that in. And then also compatibility. The GCL cannot deteriorate when it's in contact with the waste or leachate, if for any reason. So as part of this, we're currently in the review process. We have not made a decision, and this is not a public hearing. This is just an informational session to give the public, you guys, a chance to understand what the modification is, and then just to get us back with any concerns. But we will be holding a 60-day public comment period later this fall, along with a public hearing. And then after that public comment period, we will review all the comments that have been submitted to us. And we'll look at those comments to determine, have we already reviewed the modification in response to those comments, or is there something else we need to look at? Only then will we make a final decision. So as I just mentioned, this has not been approved or denied. We're still evaluating it. So final decisions will come at the end. So in conclusion, the modification will only affect the landfill liner design, and no decision's been made, but we want to hear from you. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let us know. We'd like to hear from about those. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Kimberly.
Thank you, Christine, for providing such detailed information about those proposed change. Really appreciate that. If you want to be informed of Eagle's action regarding the modification request, please subscribe to the facility's mailing list. And the way to do that is online through michigan.gov/Eagle Connect. And that is Michigan, the word spelled all the way out, .gov/EGLECONNECT. Or if you want to send by US postal mail the request to get on the mailing list, please do so by contacting Miss Vicki Terry at terryv2@michigan.gov. That is TERRYV2@michigan.gov. Or you may give her a phone call at 517-284-6546. And again, if you have any questions about the modification request, if you wanted to talk directly to Christine about them, please contact her at matlockc2@michigan.gov or give her a call at 517-290-4612. And so tonight we've talked a lot about the modification request. And if you would like to read that request, please visit our website at michigan.gov/USECOLOGYWDI. That's michigan.gov/USEcologyWDI. Okay, so with that, we have our panel available to help us with any questions that you may have. So let's start receiving questions.
Yes, sir. We don't have any questions in the question box yet, Kimberly, but just want to remind people, if you do have a question for our team here, you can type them into the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar. Or if you want, you can just click the raise hand button on your toolbar and we'll call on your name and you can ask your question that way as well, using your microphone. We'll hold it open for a little bit here, see if we have any questions come in. We do have a hand up, Kimberly. Winston, I'm going to unmute your line, Winston, so you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep,
Great.
we can hear you.
Good. Could you tell me how is the equivalency test being done? Is that done in a lab or under real life conditions? Like we have incredible amount of rain in the last 2 weeks. So how does the panel or whoever's responsible for this to say, hey, this is really equivalent or not to versus the 3 foot of secondary shooting that the original application had? So that's one question.
Okay. Christine, can you answer that one?
Yeah, I can. So we, first of all, our equivalency demonstration, or not ours, Wayne's equivalency demonstration is actually being evaluated by Dr. Chin. He is a PhD, and he literally has written the book on landfill design. So he's the one that's evaluating this. But the equivalency, as far as if it's just as good as protective or more so, that has been tested in labs and under real life conditions, as the compatibility has also. But in terms of it contacting into water, it's at the bottom of the landfill. So the amount of rain that we've received in the past couple of days really wouldn't affect it. Not really, it just wouldn't affect the liner.
Okay, is there any other comment?
Yep. Do you have another question, Winston, or?
Yeah. With the taking away the 3 foot secondary layer, does that mean the people who runs this can put in more waste in terms of volume? Because if you subtract 3 foot from it, they could say, hey, we can dump some more stuff in there.
Yes, I understand your concern, but no, this modification does not give them permission or the authorization to expand. So it's limited by a certain volume, but that volume is not being changed with this modification. So they will, even though they have an extra 3 feet of airspace, they will not be able to use it without a prior approval from us.
Oh, so that's still a possibility down the road.
It is, but we have not received that request at this time.
Because can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Right now, we live not too far from the site. You can see this top looks like it's covered with some sort of plastic sheet. So by adjusting that layer at the bottom, and if you say, okay, we still allowing only the same amount of waste being put there, so does that mean the ultimate height is going to decrease somewhat compared to what can be seen around the lake? This enormous black thing just sticking up.
Yeah, so this modification will not affect already constructed cells. So unfortunately, the black thing that you see, which is the cover, it's a landfill cover, will remain. That's going to stay there. This modification will affect the cells that have not already been built.
Okay, and that is to the west of the existing dome or the existing monstrosity.
Yes, it's to the west. It'll be to the northwest.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Kimberly, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a question about who Dr. Chen is, because Christine, you brought that up. Could you explain who he is? Or
You're muted, Kimberly.
Well, Dr. Chen, Dan Chen, he is a member of our team. He's a geological engineer specialist in our program, and his specialty is landfill designs. And so he is working on this review as well. Yes, he is. And so he is doing the design calculations and doing all the verification of the design review. So do I go around okay, there's some questions here. How do we know that the toxic chemicals are not already leaching to our water and soil? What testing is taking place, and is testing available to individual homes at US Ecology's cost? So in terms of the leachability into water and soils, Joe, can you answer that?
Yeah. So as part of the license that they have, that Wayne Disposal has with Eagle, they're required to do a lot of monitoring on a constant basis to address that question, to make sure that nothing is getting out in the landfill. Everything is getting into the landfill when it's coming in and staying in the landfill. They do groundwater monitoring at I think 28 locations. Every 3 months, they do surface water sampling at 8 locations. Every 3 months, they do ambient air sampling at 7 locations around the perimeter every 12 days. They do sediment and soil sampling at 30 locations twice a year, as well as sampling the leachate and the leak detection, which is the layer under the primary liner, like an early warning system. So they do all this testing on a regular frequency. And, we look at the results, and the license is very specific about how to evaluate the results and what would be a significant potential issue or problem. And so that's how it's verified that there are, no problems in terms of anything getting off the site or into the surrounds. As far as testing at individual homes, I mean, at this point, we don't really have any evidence that there's any problems at the facility in terms of any offsite impacts. I'm not exactly sure what type of testing you would be interested in. But I guess I would encourage you can talk to me directly. The contact information was given. If you want to email me specifically or give me a phone call or something like that, I'd be more than willing to talk to you in more detail about the testing that's done and learn more about your individual situation.
Thanks, Joe. So the next question here is about, is the principal advantage of the proposed change a smaller cross section? Christine, can you take that question, as well as could you put up the cross section so we could have a visual when you're trying to explain this?
Of course. So I mean, I can't speak for Wayne about advantages, but I do know that compacted clay itself, because it does need to meet specific criteria, has become increasingly difficult to find. And it is very expensive. It has to be shipped in. So that's our understanding is, yes, it is a smaller cross section, but in the long runs, it is more protective. It's easier to get than clay is these days. And I don't know about the cost, if it's cheaper or not. I don't know.
Okay. Another question, has the GCL being applied at any other sales at WDI?
It has. G2 was constructed last summer and it utilized GCL. And then the summer subcell G3 has been constructed using GCL.
Okay. Another question, why are toxic landfills in Michigan accepting waste from other states? And why is it that the areas they are placed in only contribute to a small portion of the waste? Mike, do you have any idea on where the waste is? Well, this says toxic landfills, but I'm going to limit it down to WDI if you know, in terms of the majority of where they're receiving waste from.
Well, the U.S. Ecology is a nationwide organization. They have literally all over the country. So waste could come from a variety of sources. Other businesses utilize them for disposal of their waste. And so the waste could literally come from anywhere, and even imported from Canada and Mexico under perfectly legal means for disposal here in the United States and in Michigan. The Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution allows that to occur. We can't prohibit that from coming in. That's one reason we have licensed facilities like this. There's very few of them because the licenses are very hard to get and hard to maintain. And we're part of that maintenance and oversight, make sure this facility operates properly and follows the rules, and we check on it in a regular manner, as Joe Rogers has mentioned, and certainly Christine talked about in terms of the engineering review and Dr. Chin's review of the thing. I mean, Dr. Chin is an expert. He's written the textbook. I believe he also had a professorship, and maybe still does, in China, where he originally is from. So we have top people on top of this facility. But commerce allows this to happen. Waste is a commodity like almost anything else that is transported around the country. So the fact that they accept it there, currently these subcells F and G are the ones that are only active. They have ones that are closed. But this is how this facility is operated. It was first opened back at that time when it first started. There was no hazardous waste designation, but it's the 1950s. In one form or another, that landfill has been operating since the late 1950s. So they have a long history there. But we also have a long history in overseeing their operation and making sure that problems are minimized, and if they occur, we make sure they were rectified. But part of that operation is to make sure that if they want to change something, that the advance or the change is a legitimate one, hopefully, and not any worse than what they had. And this sounds like it's a better operation, as Christine Matlock was saying, that they've already applied this another cell over a year ago, and so far so good, is my understanding. So this is how the system operates, and we're part of it. And this meeting tonight is part of it too, to make sure that the public has a opportunity to ask questions about this, and hopefully get a better and come away with a better understanding of the operation, and make sure that things go along smoothly and we advance stuff in a proper manner.
Okay. So while you're talking, that was a follow-up question to that. I'm going to read it.
Sure.
Yes, but many of the toxic landfills in Michigan are located in urban and or densely Black populated areas or low income area. I don't know if that's a question or statement. Will there be some investment? Oh, that just moved. Will there be some investment in spreading some of those landfills to suburban areas? Well, I can address that. The landfills that are already constructed and in play, they're not going to be dug up and relocated. They are, where they are being, oversight by our agency. We're making sure that they are operating in accordance with the rules. We're making sure that their operations are protective of human health and the environment. And we're constantly doing that oversight. And so, and we do our inspections of the facility. We're in contact with the facility. You're out there and we're looking at their operations, and we're doing a good job with the oversight there. Other question I have here is, what if loading changes since the liner is thinner and lighter are considered at the edge interfaces of surrounding cells? Can you speak to that, Christine?
I can. That is taken into consideration. You have considerations where there is an older GCL or geosynthetic clay liner interface with a newer one. There are specific criteria that they have to meet. We're also combining, a GCL to a compacted clay liner. Those have been taken into consideration. I don't want to get into the specifics here, but those have been taken into consideration.
And so if that's something, a follow-up phone call could help further explain that? Please
Yes.
give Christine a call. Also, what is in the unlined waste cell underneath? The unlined waste cell underneath.
If they could be more specific about where they're talking about, that would be good.
I'm wondering if they're referring to this compacted clay layer, but I'm not certain. Okay, yeah, if you could raise your hand and
Yeah, so we got a couple hand raised, and Rod, who asked that question,
yeah,
has got it raised. So I'm gonna allow him to talk. So Rod, I just unmuted your mic, and after Rod, we got another person that's got a hand up too, Kimberly.
Okay.
Hi, this is Rod Hill. This is Rod Hill.
Yes, sir. We hear you.
Hi, this is Rod Hill from MCATS. The question, I was reading through the list of attachments, and there was a 5-page list of questions that had already been discussed, and I noticed that there was a comment about at least some or perhaps part of this active cell that was that had been constructed over another cell, an earlier cell that was listed as unlined, and I didn't see anything else referenced about that unlined cell, and was just asking about what constituents are in there, and what, if ever, any matters that might relate to what we're talking about.
Okay, so can you help me out with what's that 5-page document you're referring to?
Well, I'm going to have to go back to my other computer to find it. Just a moment.
Maybe we can come back, Tim, in a minute. We do have another hand up. So, Mr. Hill, we'll come back to you in just a moment. We'll come back to you. So we'll leave your hand raised there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Kimberly, there's another hand up. Is Anthony. So Anthony, I'm going to unmute your mic, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Hi, my name's Anthony Gibson. I'm an environmental commissioner for Van Buren Township. I just have a brief question about the this proposed change on the liner. Seeing this is going to be in a new construction here, what is the long-term durability of this change? Has that been looked into? Because, we have to live with this landfill for a long time, even after it's closed.
Christine?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. The durability has been looked at in terms of the compatibility with the waste and leachate. that has been looked at and have been evaluated. And Wayne did submit that documentation to us.
Okay, great. And how many other landfills around the country are you currently utilizing this technology?
I don't have a specific number, but my understanding is that this is kind of the industry standard at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna, Kimberly, I'm gonna unmute Rod again.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Hill.
I'm still looking for the reference. I haven't been able to find it. It's, I believe it was listed in their response to a question from Eagle.
Okay.
Still looking, sorry.
Kimberly, I don't think we have any other questions in the box yet, and no other hands raised at the moment.
Yeah, I'm looking at the question. I don't see any, and I don't see any hands. So we can just wait. Let me look and see that I get everything. There was another question by Mr. Hill. It says, okay, since you brought it up, are there currently any, is this consent actions still active at this facility? There have a number of judgments for violations there in the past. So Mike, I'm gonna ask you to take that one.
Question was, are there any current consent judgments? The answer is no, there are not.
All right, thank you. Okay, here's another answer to the previous question about the time that the GCL liners have been used. They've been used for decades, particularly in the Part 115, which is regulated municipal solid waste landfills. So that may be the answer to that previous question. Thanks, Jim. Qualify who answered. That answer was from Mr. Jim Ferrito. He's our waste characterization specialist in our hazardous waste program.
Okay, Kimberly, got our hand up. Oh, it's Winston. He's got a question again.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jim. For some reason, I'm not seeing those hands. On my
Yeah,
screen.
that's okay. I'll let you know if somebody's got their hand up.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. This is just follow up to the comment that raised by one of the previous questionnaire about having approval for a landfill site over an existing or previously existing landfill. What is the Michigan policy in terms of approving landfill on top of the old landfill, etc.?
Christine, do you want to respond to that?
I can.
Okay.
So I am not familiar with the 115 or the municipal solid waste landfills, their rules. So this is not in relation to that. But in terms of hazardous waste landfills, we do allow new cells to be built on top of older cells. There are extensive criteria that they have to meet and demonstrate that it is safe and protective, but we do allow that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, Kimberly, or hands raised. Maybe if Mr. Hill's wants to talk more about the citation he referenced, he can get in touch directly with you or Christine, I'm thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did find the reference I was looking for.
Okay.
It's actually on page 1. It was from apparently the 413 2018 set of questions. And it was a reference to a unlined liner or an unlined landfill underneath. It's about halfway down page 1.
Okay. I
Would
do
that
know
be
what you're,
your- Oh, okay.
yeah, I know what you're talking about now, Mr. Hill. So in this case, I do not know what constituents are in that land, in that cell off the top of my
Well,
head.
Then if I may follow up, I'm not aware that this facility has ever been just a type 1 municipal landfill. Is it possible that that it would be that sort of constituents under there?
It is possible because I don't think it's ever been labeled as type 1, but they do have solid waste cells that are in post-closure.
Well,
So that are not regulated by the hazardous waste program, but I cannot say with any definitive certainty that what constituents are in that cell.
Understood.
Joe Rogers, do you have any input on that?
I think they were, they were older cells, this facility's been, I think somebody mentioned it's been in operation quite a long time. And so those were older cells, and I think as the gentleman referenced online, but the area has a very thick regional clay, which is one of the reasons why they meet our siting requirements for a hazardous waste landfill. And they also, there's monitoring on the groundwater done around the perimeter of those old online cells, as well as the monitoring that we're doing for that, for the hazardous waste cells.
If I may.
So yes, sir.
Yeah, recognizing and also remembering the history of the site myself. My question is, are you aware, does the leachate monitoring system go down to include all of those, shall we say, legacy constituents underneath? Because back in the day, that was a pretty active industrial site back before the Clean Water Act, as I recall.
I'm sorry, my internet dropped out. I lost a lot of your collection here. I'm having connection.
My question relates to the any leachate monitoring system. Does it go down far enough to include those legacy cells at that site?
Yes, I believe they are pumping leachate from those older cells.
Okay, and they are, when you say pumping, is that leachate sampled and identified, characterized at any point? Is that done, or is it simply being sent off to a different location? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Hill, I think Joe's having connective issues.
Yeah.
It is pumped and then treated.
So it's treated, it must be sampled and characterized so that it can be properly treated.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. All
Not
right.
seeing other hands raised or anything, Kimberly. So I don't know if you had some wrap up
Oh, okay.
slides or, yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. I have a couple comments in here for your staff, it looks like, to share and forward on, but
Okay.
I'm not seeing their hands raised either, so.
All right. Well, Christine, if you can take us back to the slide with your information on it. So people can have that one last time. So there's the information for Christine, contact information, as well as for if you wanted to be on the mailing list by sending us mail by U.S. Postal Mail to get on the list. Unfortunately, my contact information isn't there, but I am Tyson K at michigan.gov. You can give me a call that way. And I'm also at 517-388-2797. And so again, thank you so much for coming out and spending time with us. We appreciate all your questions and your comments. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime you have additional questions or need further clarification. So again, thank you so much for spending this time with us, and we appreciate it. Thank you.